I popped on just about a minute early. Welcome to Mirabella's sanitation class. I wanted to get on early to let you guys know if you're going to watch the video today, you will get far more out of it if you scroll in the feed and find the sanitation guide that I posted earlier today. So you can find it here on the Mirabella Beauty page. You can also find it in any of our private Facebook groups if you are a Mirabella retailer. So definitely get on and find that sanitation guide. We had to do it this way. I found out that Facebook Live does not allow me to be on camera and then bounce back and forth between that and sharing my screen. So originally that's how I was going to conduct the class. However, we cannot do that. So I decided to go ahead and do it on camera and then post the sanitation guide for you guys. So if you're just tuning in now, go ahead and find that sanitation guide and either print it off or pull it up so that you can follow along. That guide is also posted on our GoBella site. So if you are a retailer and you have registered for an account on the site, you can access the new sanitation guide. You would just go to the training tab on the home screen and then go to how-to guides, and the sanitation guide is listed there as well. So again, I popped on just a smidge early to remind you guys to go get the sanitation guide so that you can follow along. So I'm going to do my best to explain things to you guys and demo some of the sanitation practices that we're recommending. Obviously, I am confined to a little space here to be on camera, so I'll kind of show you guys up here and demo as much as I can. So if you're just tuning in, again, I am going to be discussing our recommendations for makeup sanitation, and we do have a sanitation guide that accompanies this video. So I have posted it down in the feed, so go ahead and go find that, print it off or pull it up side by side so that you can follow along as I talk. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Obviously, with everything going on right now, we know sanitation is more important than ever. It has been something that I have always advocated for and that I've really pushed. If you've ever come to some of our fall events, you've probably taken a sanitation class by me, and we've had a sanitation guide in some form out for a couple years now. So this one is a little bit updated with just a few extra recommendations and stricter guidelines. But I do want to say that these are our recommendations only. Obviously, everything is kind of new right now. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with the future of makeup applications and what new rules or regulations are going to be in place. So this guide is written based on, what we know to be safe practices. But I definitely encourage all of you to stay up to date on what your state or province boards are recommending, because that's going to probably differ from area to area. And so we're doing what we can to give kind of blanket statements for sanitation and disinfection, but I definitely recommend that you stay on top of what your governing bodies are recommending. So if you are following along on the guide, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first page here, past the cover page, says, why is sanitation important? This guide is written really from the standpoint of having a makeup kit. So this can definitely apply to those of you that retail our products and that have a display unit as well. But safe practices for working with products during an application, okay? So your makeup kit or your makeup stash potentially comes in contact with hundreds of faces per year, right? So some of us are busier than others, but even if you're booked every single weekend, I mean, that's at least, 52 people, if not more, if you're doing large parties, right? So think about all of the people that your products and your tools come in contact with. Sanitation is extremely important for that reason. Not to mention that for the artist, it requires that we get in close proximity to our clients, right? So their eyes, their mouth, their nose, dead skin cells, all of that stuff. So if you're not taking proper precautions, you're not only exposing yourself to potential contaminants, but you're risking that you're passing that on to following clients, right? So super, super important so that you keep yourself safe and so that you keep your clients safe. So potential threats. I just listed a few in the guide. Acne, pink eye, cold, flu, herpes, hepatitis, meningitis, staph infection, MRSA, obviously COVID-19, and more. So there are a lot of potential threats that you could potentially get yourself or pass along to a client. So I think that is something we all really need to take seriously. I've seen artists in the past kind of be a little bit careless with sanitation, and some of them have gotten away with it so far. But that's not the standard that we want to set for our industry, right? We are professionals, we are trained, and we want everyone out there to know that we're doing everything we can to keep them safe and that we're operating in a professional manner. So I think following everything that's happening right now, consumers are going to be more well-versed in what you're supposed to be doing to keep them safe. So cutting corners is just not going to work anymore. Ultimately, it is your reputation and the reputation of your business that is on the line. Consumers are savvy. They're well-versed in, what you're supposed to be doing to keep them safe. And I hear all the time from clients or family members, friends that are like, oh yeah, I had my makeup done the other weekend. She used the same set of brushes on everybody. I mean, they know what you're supposed to be doing. So it's your reputation and people talk. So, it might take a little bit more time to do everything properly, but that's what you want to be known for, right? You want to be known as a professional who takes every measure possible to keep your clients safe and healthy. So the last little piece I want to add to that, if you're looking at the first slide in the presentation, is that if a client exhibits symptoms of illness, I know that it's a nerve-wracking conversation to have with them, but you need to think about rescheduling the application. I know so many people that are like, yeah, she had a cold, but I went ahead and did it. I mean, that is totally your call. I cannot tell you how to operate your business, but I do recommend that you really consider rescheduling the application, even though I know that's a hard conversation to have. I mean, again, ultimately it's your name on the line, and you want to make sure that you keep yourself healthy as well as clients that might follow that one that is potentially ill. So give some thought to rescheduling. And I also recommend putting that in either a makeup contract or the policies for your business, that if someone does exhibit signs of illness, you will need to reschedule or cancel the application. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the difference between sanitizing, disinfecting, and sterilizing. I think in our industry in particular, those are terms that get interchanged a lot. I am completely guilty of that. But there is a difference. And so I think knowing that difference helps you be more aware of what you should be doing properly. So the first thing we'll talk about is sanitizing. So sanitizing is like the base level, right? So that is the physical removal of contaminants that could harbor bacteria or harvest germs and viruses. So an example of sanitizing would be your lipstick. Maybe you saw somebody use this. So you take it and you scrape off the part of the product that touched their mouth. That is sanitizing. That is the physical removal of those contaminants. Okay? So then the next step further up is disinfecting. Disinfecting comes in where you're using a chemical. Okay? So it involves the use of chemicals to reduce or eliminate harmful germs, bacteria, and viruses. So once you come in with a disinfecting spray or wipe, maybe you come in with some alcohol, that is disinfecting. Okay, so that's the biggest difference. Sanitation just requires the removal of the contaminant by scraping it off or wiping it off. Even taking out the trash is considered sanitation, right? Disinfecting comes in where you start using a chemical to help. And then sterilizing is one step further from that. So that is the process of killing all living organisms and their spores. So mold spores, spores that can help the germ or the virus travel. So sterilizing is typically done in a medical setting that involves a UV sterilizer or an autoclave. That's not really something that we worry about with makeup, being that our instruments don't really come in contact with bodily fluids or blood. So what we're going to be talking about today is sanitizing and disinfecting. Okay. So I do recommend that you read over that slide and that you kind kind of, get well versed in the difference between those, just so that you're able to speak to it a little bit better when maybe a client asks you questions. And then I think knowing helps you remember what to do a little bit better too. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is a recommended supply list for pro makeup kits. And this includes, if you have a makeup display, the items that you want to have near or on the display, okay? So first thing, hand sanitizer. I keep a tiny little bottle like this in my kit, and this is super important to use to sanitize your hands prior to working on a client. I also like to have it handy to put on their hands. So if you're working on a client, go ahead and have them sanitize their hands too, because chances are, I'm sure you guys have worked on people that, they touch their face or they mess with their hair or they're on their phone and then they rub their eye. Make sure you have the hand sanitizer for them to use as well. Second item, I personally recommend a hospital grade disinfecting solution, wipe, or a spray. Obviously that depends on the area you're in and what your boards requires. So something like Let's Touch or Let's Dance, or Citrus 2, Cavi wipes, something that is a virucidal, tuberculocidal, and then kills regular germs and bacteria. So something that can kill those bloodborne pathogens as well. So I do recommend having something hospital grade on hand, as well as regular like Clorox wipes, and then alcohol, which we'll talk about in a minute. The next thing, paper towels. So people often ask me why paper towels, and then the next item on that list is terry cloth or microfiber towels. I carry both. One, when you are wiping things down, you want to be able to just throw that paper towel away so that you don't have to worry about packing it up and taking it with you if you're working on location, if you're not in your own setting where you have a trash can available. Not to mention, paper towels are really easy just to toss if they do get dirty or you get a contaminant on them. I do also like to have terry cloth or microfiber towels. I have some that are brown or black. I recommend dark colors so that if you do need to quick clean a brush, you're not staining anything. So either type of towel is going to be used to cover your working surface prior to starting work. Okay. So whether you are on location and you're working, from a table in a hotel room, or maybe you're at a convention center and they have a pop-up table for you, or if you're in your own space and you have a little area maybe next to your makeup unit, you want to make sure to cover the surface that you're working on. Okay. Just because you don't know if someone has come over and set something on that surface, you don't know how super clean it is. So I recommend cleaning it and then laying down paper towels or actual terry cloth microfiber towels to set your products and supplies on. Okay, that's just going to give you that extra level of protection. And then when you're ready to go and you're finished with your application, you can just scoop it all up and go, right? Okay, so then the next thing I have is Quick Clean Brush Cleaner. So like Mirabella's Purify. If you don't have any of this, go ahead and pick it up. I will talk about this a little bit later. And how this should be used and when this can be used, but we'll get there in a minute. So after the Quick Clean Brush Cleaner, 70% isopropyl alcohol in a spray bottle. Okay, I just have a little generic spray bottle. This should be labeled just so that nobody that comes in contact with your kit, or, if there's a bridal party or something, and I know I hate it, but sometimes they touch your stuff. You just want everyone to know what this is, just so that it's not dangerous. Sometimes people think it's water, but go ahead and label it. And this is straight up 70% isopropyl alcohol. So I'm going to take the opportunity now to talk about the alcohol. I think people are often miseducated on using isopropyl alcohol as a disinfectant for makeup applications. You want 70%, 90, 99, something like that is not as effective. I know that hospitals use both, but they're operating a little bit differently than what we're doing with makeup applications. Anything higher than 70% will evaporate too fast to kill the bacteria and germs that you need it to. And not to mention, because it evaporates so fast, it has the potential to freeze the cell wall of the contaminant, which just preserves it. Okay. So you do not want to use anything higher than 70% alcohol. And technically this needs to sit for about 30 seconds to completely disinfect. You can generously spray it and wipe it down as well, but just make sure that you're using 70%. Okay, other recommendations, tissues, Kleenex, something like that, cotton swabs, cotton balls or cotton rounds. I use cotton rounds personally, but it's really personal preference on that. Most of the time, the cotton balls and cotton rounds are going to be used for skin prep. So if you've watched any of our other videos, you know that Mirabella has a balancing facial toner, and that's where I use my little cotton rounds. Then this one's important. So some type of spatula or disposable spatula. So I use these tiny wood sticks all the time. This is my personal preference. You can also use the wood sticks that are larger, like the popsicle stick size. You can get plastic or metal spatulas. The only thing with the plastic or metal spatula is you have to make sure you are able to disinfect them. So once you touch a product and then wipe it off, you need to disinfect it before you use it in another product. That is why I really just prefer the sticks, because once you use it, you just toss it and you know you're completely safe. Okay, the next, disposable lip gloss wands. Sorry, I'm getting in my little bag, so it's a little loud crinkling here. This is the kind that I use personally. You can also find tiny lipstick brushes that are disposable. Again, that's personal preference, but you do want to have some type of disposable lip wand. Next, disposable mascara wands. There are several different kinds of those. We have some that are Mirabella that you can purchase from us. They are a traditional mascara wand. So it looks like this. You can also find silicone ones. So I know our waterproof mascara has a silicone brush. You can find disposable silicone wands. So that is personal preference, but you want to make sure you have some type of disposable mascara wand, okay? And then other disposable applicators that you might find necessary. So I know a lot of people like to get the teeny tiny little eyeliner brushes. That's fine. Whatever you personally like using, just make sure you have a good stock of disposables. A palette. So either palette that can be disinfected or thrown away. So I personally use a metal palette. Sorry, I just wiped it down, so it's a little like streaky. So you can use a metal palette. You would clean this and then sanitize it either with spray or a Clorox wipe or something after use, or even something as simple as a paper plate or a tea saucer that you can wash and disinfect. I've also seen people use wax paper and foil. That is totally fine. As long as it's something that can be disinfected or something that can be immediately tossed after use, you're going to be fine. But you do need to have some type of movable working surface that you can put product onto to work off of, okay? The next one, Tegaderm film. I wish I had this to show to you guys. There are other brands out there as well. Tegaderm is just the one that I personally have used. So for those of you that are used to working off the back of your hand, you should not be doing this. I know even in the past we've said that was okay if you sanitize the hand first. That is no longer acceptable. So you cannot work off the back of your hand. One of the main reasons artists like to work off the back of their hand is because it warms up product. So whether it's concealer or eyeliner, foundation, a cream blush or something like that, it warms up the product so that when you go to put it on the skin, it melts into the skin a little bit better. So if you are someone that is used to working off the back of your hand, or if you have products that work better once they're warmed up, invest in some Tegaderm film or something similar. So what that is it's a patch. It almost looks like a giant Band-Aid, and it sticks to the skin, but the center of it is a clear film. And so it's thin enough that when you put that product onto the clear film, you're able to get some of the warmth from your hand to warm up that product, okay? If you're someone that, you know, you don't warm up product or you've never tried that, definitely give it a whirl. Some products perform better that way, but you do have the option to put that same product onto a palette and really work it back and forth with a brush to get some warmth into it as well. But again, if you're someone that you are used to working off of your hand, you need to put Tegaderm film or something similar on the hand first. You can no longer work off of your skin, okay? So the film is really nice because once it gets dirty or once it gets filled up with product, you can peel it off and put a new one on if you need to, okay? Next one, multiple brush sets. Ideally, one full set of brushes per client. I know this is hard for some of you. I know that a lot of you only have one set of brushes on your makeup displays, or maybe you only have one set of brushes in your kit. Please, please invest in more. I know it's a huge investment. I know brush sets are expensive, but you should not only be using a quick brush clean and then using that same set on another client. So toward the end of the presentation, I'll talk more about brushes and what you should be doing, but you ideally need to have one full set of brushes. So that's foundation, blush, powder, eye brushes per client that you're working on, okay? And then the last thing is plastic storage bags. So whether that's a Ziploc or whatever you like to use, I recommend having these so that as you're working, if you have dirty brushes, immediately throw them into the bag, okay? So then you know everything in this bag is dirty and contaminated, and then when you're done for the day, you zip up your bag, you take it home, and you wash everything in this bag. You can put your palette in here, whatever you want, but this is going to be your dirty bag, right? I really recommend that as opposed to just sort of setting them aside and then hoping you don't mix them up with clean brushes or other clean supplies. That way you can just seal this, put it in your kit, take it home, and everything in this bag is safe and contained, and it's not contaminating any other products. So I carry plastic storage bags in my kit with me, and I keep them next to a unit as well. So, okay, that is the sanitation list. I did want to mention too that the way this films, I unfortunately am not able to see a lot of questions that pop up at the time. Since I'm landscape, it cuts them off for some reason. So we do have some people on today answering questions, but I will get on after and answer any questions that you have as well. So go ahead and type them below if you come up with anything, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Okay, so we're going to move into how to work in a safe manner. So recommended sanitation practices. So like I mentioned at the beginning, these are merely our general recommendations on how to operate safely. So you want to check with your state or province boards to ensure that you're complying with their recommendations, okay? I also want to say that right now is a very uncertain time. We don't know exactly what the future of makeup applications holds. I really hope if everyone is operating in a safe manner, there's no problem there. But we don't know what's going to happen as far as new requirements with PPE or things like that. We don't know what's going to happen with requirements as far as testers go either. So if you're a retailer, what you can do as far as testers and testing products for your clients in a safe manner. So these are recommendations based on information that I've been able to gather so far. But again, you need to use your own judgment and you need to check with your governing bodies to make sure that you're compliant. Okay. All right. So first thing, hands. Wash your hands before and after every single application. If you're able to wash your hands in front of your client, please do so. I think it gives them peace of mind. It helps calm their nerves a little bit, especially with everything that's going on right now. Seeing that you're doing that is going to help ease their mind a little bit. Also, keep your sanitizer handy. Go ahead and sanitize your hands in front of them and then give them some hand sanitizer too. And when you're sanitizing, make sure to come up your arms a little bit. I think people forget that. So make sure to do that between your fingers, the whole thing. So next, working surfaces. So this is what I was talking about a little bit ago. As an artist, you need a clean working surface in which to set your tools, set your products, things like that. So here is why here is where I recommend that you disinfect all the surfaces that you can, and then cover that surface with towels or paper towels, and then place your items on top of that. Okay. It's just adding that extra layer of protection so that you're not worried about any of your products, brushes, or anything like that touching a hard surface that maybe isn't completely clean. All right. Before I get into the next items, I want to mention this guide is arranged a little bit differently than some of the ones we've done in the past. So the old guide used to say like lipsticks, here's what you do for lipsticks. Eye definers, this is what you do for eye definers. So I have categorized or broken it into categories based on the type of packaging that the product comes in. This way, whether you're using our line or another line or combo of lines, you know what to do for every product type, if that makes sense. So the first one I want to talk about is pump or squeeze tube products. So that would involve something like, and I apologize, my foundation is almost completely out here. So that would include something like Invincible here, where it has the pump on it. Or something in a squeeze tube like a primer. If you have our old CC cream, it's in a squeeze tube. So something in which you cannot get product out of it otherwise, right? So for anything that is a pump, a squeeze tube, you're going to use your palette. So you need to pump it onto the palette and then never touch the tip of the opening of the product, okay? If you had a little string of something hanging off here, you want to wipe it off with a clean tissue or wipe it off with your Clorox wipe. Don't touch your fingers to it. I think that's habit because we do that so often at home. You know, I might pump this onto my fingers and then wipe this to get the excess off. When you are working on clients and you're working with your professional kit and your professional products, you cannot do that. You cannot touch this, okay? So once it's on the palette, you need to wipe the tip off if there's anything left on there, okay? Okay, the next thing is bottled products. So at Mirabella, we don't really have a lot of these. The closest thing would be our toner, but it has a push top on it. So if you have a foundation or maybe a toner or something in which, I'm just going to use this as an example, in which you unscrew the top, right? So this has to be poured out. What you want to do is either pour it onto a palette, into a little like dispensing cup. So whether that's a plastic cup you can throw away or a tiny little like Dappen dish that you can wash and sanitize or disinfect, something like that. Again, you should not be dipping anything into the product packaging. You need to pour it out and then use an applicator to put it on the client, okay? All right. Moving along, next thing, loose powdered products. So we do have our perfecting powder. I pulled 2 different containers here just to show you. So the new perfecting powder has this little net in here in which the powder comes out. And then the older version had the little turn dial in here, right? Where it has the little holes right here that you can shake it out on. Okay, so when you're working with a loose powder product, whether that's, you know, like a setting powder like what we have, or if it's maybe a loose eyeshadow or a loose blush or something, you want to tap that out onto your palette. So again, get your palette. I still have that foundation on here. Tap the product out, okay? You want to do this prior to applying it to the client, obviously. And you really want to try to not use the lid of the product. I see people do that all the time, and then they just put this back on the jar. That is not sanitary, okay? You have not disinfected this, especially if you're working with a brush. You've used it, you touch the client, you come back to the lid after you've touched their face. Guess what? This is contaminated, okay? So don't do that. The lid really should be used as a very, very last resort if for some reason you are unprepared and do not have a palette handy, okay? If that happens, this needs to be washed and then you need to spray it with alcohol to sanitize it, okay? So if you need more product, tap more out onto your palette. So to summarize, don't use the lid. Really try to not do that. Should you have used the lid, you need to wash it and sanitize it before you ever put it back on the powder. In addition, you need to make sure that lid is 100% dry because you do not want any moisture in a loose powder product. Okay, it will get cakey and then it won't work the way it's supposed to. All right, next product category, tubed products with included applicators. So that includes lip gloss, mascara, brow products, our eyeshadow, eyeshadow primer, anything that has an applicator included with it, okay? The way you're going to handle that is that, first, my recommendation is that you remove this. So this is called a doe foot when we're talking about lip gloss, and it's about the same in our eyeshadow primer. In your professional kit or on your display unit, I really recommend that you pull this off, because what happens is, as pros, sometimes you're just in a hurry. You might forget because we're used to being able to put this right on ourselves, right? So you might pull this out of your kit and then go to the client with it and then be like, oh shoot, I can't believe I just did that. You cannot put it back in here if you've done that, right? And then if we're talking about a display unit, I recommend taking those off so that you do not have a client come up, put it on their lips, put it back in here, set it back on this display, and you had no clue that they did that, because this is contaminated then, right? So I recommend pulling off or cutting off the applicator. So whether that's the mascara wand, you cut it off, or you pull this off, that is my first recommendation. Next, you either need to use a disposable wand or applicator to take the product from the packaging. So don't use this. You're going to use a disposable, okay? And then once it is taken from the packaging, you can either use your disposable to apply it to the client, or you can take it and then wipe it on your palette and then apply it from the palette to the client, okay? Never, ever, ever double dip. If you need more product and you just use one of these on the client, you must throw this away and get a brand new one to get more product. You cannot, after something has touched a client, you cannot put it back in the tube. Should you do this, this entire tube then either needs to be given to that client or you need to throw it away, because that means the entire thing is contaminated. So I know some of this sounds kind of scary, guys, and I'm being very like firm with it, but it's so, so important that you abide by these rules. Again, especially with everything going on right now, we need to err on the side of caution and be as safe as possible. So that is for tube products with applicators that are included. So again, mascara, lip gloss, brow products, anything that is in a tube and then has an applicator like this, okay? Make sure to use your disposables, and I really recommend cutting the applicator off of there. Okay, next category, products that come in bullet form or in stick form. So examples of this would be lipstick, concealers. If you're using some other brand and you have a stick foundation, or sometimes you'll even find like eyeshadow sticks or cream blush sticks or something like that. So anything that is in a bullet or a stick form. The proper sanitation practice or protocol for that would be to take a wood stick or your spatula, and you're going to scrape off the product that you need, okay? So for something like this, since it is avoidable to, you don't have to use the product directly on the client, don't do that, okay? So with some other products like lip definers and things like that, you almost need to use it from the packaging because it's so tiny and the way it applies is very precise. However, there is no reason that you need to apply this directly to someone's mouth, so don't. Use your wood stick. You're going to just scrape off what you need. And I recommend scraping on the angle of the product, or if it's straight across, that's fine. Don't scrape from the side here. I've seen people do that, and what happens is this gets unstable and it's going to break. So there's no reason to scrape up the side. Just scrape along the top. Okay. And then you're going to apply it to the client, either from this stick or you're going to then scrape it onto a palette. I almost always work from my palette. That's just what I like to do. So then you're going to scrape this onto your palette and then come in with either a brush, or you can come in with some other type of disposable applicator and then apply it to the client, okay? So you would work from this, apply to the client. And because this was scraped off and because this is only for that one client, You can use this same brush, come back, and then get more product. But should you run out of the product that is on your palette, you need to get a brand new stick, scrape more product, put that on your palette, and then work from it, okay? So I know that is a lot, but you want to always operate in the most sanitary manner. So you should be scraping those products and then applying with a clean brush or applicator. So always remember, if you need more product, you have to get a new disposable stick or a new disinfected spatula to scrape that off, okay? All right. Next item. Pencils or crayons that can be sharpened. So at Mirabella, we have moved all of our pencils and crayons to retractable, so twist up. However, our older version was a wood pencil. So you may still have some of these, or you may have something from another brand. So if you are working with a pencil that you sharpen in a traditional sharpener, the proper technique for that is to spray the pencil itself, okay, with alcohol. Get it nice and saturated. Let this dry. Spray the sharpener itself with alcohol. Make sure that it gets in the holes. Once this is dry, sharpen the pencil, and then guess what? You have to spray it again, okay? I know that seems like a lot, but especially if you are using a sharpener that maybe is on your display unit, and so other artists have access to that, you don't know for certain if this is contaminated or not, right? We want to think that everybody is following proper protocol, but sometimes they don't. And so you have to always operate under the assumption that something is dirty. You have to always assume that someone has not done what they're supposed to, so you need to be extra cautious. So for anything that can be sharpened in a regular sharpener like this, you must spray it with alcohol first, both the pencil and the sharpener, sharpen it, and then spray it again, okay? That just double ensures that this is disinfected, okay? I know that seems like a lot, but that really is the best way to ensure that you're operating with those products in the most sanitary manner. Okay, so the next item, since we just talked about pencils that can be sharpened in a regular sharpener, the next thing we're going to talk about are the retractables. Which, let me see if I have one here. Forgot to pull one. Sorry, guys. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I'm using our blackmail crayon here. For anything that is retractable, what you want to do when possible, and it is more possible with a chubby crayon than with a tiny pencil, is scrape off what you need, okay? So that's one method, is to scrape off what you need, apply it to your palette, and then work with a brush or a disposable applicator. The other item that is acceptable, or the other technique that is acceptable, is to take a brush right to the tip of the product, load it with product, then go to the client. Now, the catch is, if you need more, you have to get a brand new brush. So keep that in mind. You cannot come back to this once you've touched the client. So scrape the product off, come straight to this to load it. And I do that all the time with this product when I am making maybe a wing and I want it to be super matte black and I'm using this product. I will use the brush directly from here, but then I get a new brush when I need more product. So that's a lot. You have to have a lot of brushes on hand. And then the other option is that you are using the pencil or the crayon and applying it straight to the client. Okay, that is sometimes necessary, especially if you are working with a smaller pencil, right? So an eye definer, a lip definer, something like that. And the reason you're using that pencil is because it's very tiny and you're doing fine detailed work, right? So you can apply it directly to the client. However, when you are done, you must scrape this off. So again, come in with your stick, scrape off the product all the way around here, and then you're going to spray this with alcohol. I mentioned this in a video a few weeks ago, but when you do that, hold your pencil upside down. And then you're going to spray it with the alcohol. Make sure you get it nice and saturated, and you want to continue to hold this upside down while it dries. Okay, there is a little bit of a gap. It's easier to see on this pencil here. Okay, so there is a little bit of a gap between the lead and between the pencil casing here, right? Since this is retractable when you turn it up. The last thing you want to happen is that you spray this with alcohol, you turn it back up like this, and that alcohol runs down into the packaging. Over time, that is going to mess up the texture and the creaminess of the lead in the pencil. So once you spray it with alcohol, you need to hold it upside down. Another thing you can do when you're working with the small pencils like this, if you have used something like this directly on a client, you want to break the tip off. So I'll use my towel, a paper towel, something like that, and you will press and just simply break that tip right off. Okay, so you can see there, I've broken it off. It's nice and flat now. Then you're going to turn it up a little bit to access it, spray that with alcohol. Okay, if you were able to use a brush right to the tip of this, do that. But there are those three methods you can use. So either scrape, apply it to a palette, then use a brush or applicator. That's the first one. Second one is take the brush right to the tip of the product, load it with product and use it. However, you have to get a new clean brush when you need more. Or if you're using it directly from this, you need to break off the tip or scrape it off and then spray it with alcohol and hold it upside down until it's dry. Okay? So that is for any retractable pencil or crayon. Okay, so same goes for our brow pencils, which I did not show one of those, but it would be the same practice. Okay, I need a little sip of water here, guys. Sorry, lots of talking. Okay, next one, liquid pen products. I forgot to pull an eyeliner. Let me see if I can find one for you. Okay, this is my personal stash, so sorry about that. Liquid pen products. So we are talking liquid eyeliners. I know there are some liquid brow products. Anything that is in a pen type packaging, okay? Here's the big kicker. You cannot ever, ever, ever use this on more than one person. I know you probably hate to hear that, especially those of you that have one of these on your display unit. You cannot use this on multiple people. I don't care what anyone has told you in the past. Because this is a chamber of ink in here, the second this touches somebody's skin, okay, there's ink in here that flows back into the chamber. It is contaminated. Okay, so you cannot safely use any liquid pen product on multiple clients. So, my recommendations, either say you're doing prom or bridal or something like that, either rope the cost of the liquid pen product into the application and then give it to the client, or you need to encourage them to purchase one separate, right? That is really the only way that you can handle it. The other thing, though, is this is not my personal preference, but I do know artists that do that. They will take this, push it onto their palette several times to get a little puddle of ink, then come in with a brush or an applicator and apply it. That's not my personal preference, just because I find that you waste a ton of product doing that, because this will start to dry on the palette very quickly. And then you will have to keep doing that to keep it liquidy enough to apply. Not to mention when you dip a brush in that, it's going to absorb some of the product. So a new liquid liner or brow pen or whatever, you need to use a new one on every single client. Okay. If this is on your display unit and you're trying to demo it onto the palette like I just did here to show them how it comes out. Sanitize a hand or put Tegaderm film on it. But if you're doing that, you can never touch this to somebody's face, okay? It is just going to be set aside for demo only. And that is it. So I know that's something a lot of you don't want to hear, but anytime you're working with a liquid pen product, you really need to have one product per person. So again, rope that into the cost of your application if you know you're going to be using a liquid product, and then gift it to the client. That way, you know you've been sanitary. They feel like they got something special out of it. And then if you're doing a trial, they would just bring that product back and you would use it for the actual application day of event. Okay. Next thing, let's talk about sponges. This is another hot topic because I know people are very fond of using sponges, especially the egg-shaped kind that have become really popular in the last several years. They do apply beautifully, but they are not sanitary. It is impossible to disinfect a sponge. You just cannot do it. You can shampoo them. So I use the little triangle wedges on my clients. You can also cut these so that you get more out of one sponge. So at home, you can shampoo this and use it on yourself again. That's completely fine. However, if you are a pro and you're doing professional applications, this sponge or whatever sponge you use needs to either be given to the client or thrown in the trash when you're done with it. You cannot shampoo this and use it on someone else ever. Okay? Because of the porous nature of the sponges and because things can get so far down in here, you cannot ensure that you have cleaned this properly or disinfected it properly and that there's no contaminants. So again, if you're someone that's really fond of the egg-shaped sponges, those are kind of expensive. Excuse me, guys, I got a little tickle. Those are kind of expensive. So if you insist on using a sponge like that, you want to rope that in the cost of your application as well and then gift it to the client. Okay. So again, sponges, if they are used on client, need to be thrown away or given to the client. You cannot wash them and use them again on someone else. Okay. Brushes. So here's a hot topic. I mentioned earlier that you really need to invest in a set of brushes per client that you're going to be working on. And that is just the truth. Once upon a time, we used to think it was okay to use a quick clean on your brushes like this, to have one set, use a quick clean, and then use that same set on another client. You cannot do that. They're just not getting clean and disinfected enough. So you do need to have multiple sets of brushes, okay, per client. So once you use a set of brushes, okay, like I said, I keep plastic zipper bags handy. I throw my used brushes into this bag. Then I take them home. I shampoo them. I let them dry. And then I spray them with the 70% alcohol to disinfect. Shampooing is really, truly fine most of the time as long as you're being thorough. However, in light of things that are happening right now, you may want to take the extra precaution of spraying them with alcohol. Keep in mind that this can potentially dry out the bristles of your brushes. So when you shampoo them, you want to use something that has a conditioning agent in it to keep those bristles nice and soft and fluffy. Another thing, you want to make sure you're cleaning the handle of the brush. So I don't recommend, you never ever want to submerge the entire brush in water. So you're going to wipe your handles down with disinfectant. So whether that's a disinfecting wipe or a spray and you wipe it down with a paper towel, that is fine. But do not submerge this in water because it will ruin your brushes. So again, brushes should either be shampooed, dried, and disinfected before they're used again on clients, or you need to have a brand new set of brushes per client. So let's talk about the quick clean brush cleaner, right? So when you are using the same brush on the same client, but you want to change colors. So most of the time this happens with eyeshadow, right? So like, say I love my fluffy eye blender here, and I've already used it on one client with one shade of eyeshadow, but I really want to use this brush again with a different shade. That is where you can use your quick clean brush cleaner. So you're going to mist the towel very heavily with it, spray the brush, come in with the towel and swirl it around. This is another reason I recommend having terry cloth towels or microfiber towels, because you can't effectively do this with a paper towel. You need to use a lot of pressure when you're swirling this around. And what will happen on a paper towel is that paper towel is going to shred, and then you'll have little bits of it in your brush. Okay. So again, the quick clean brush cleaner is really nice when you are using the same brush on the same client, but you need to change colors. Okay. This does have some disinfecting alcohol in it and witch hazel. It is not enough for most state boards. So that is one reason you cannot use this to properly cleanse brushes and then use the same set on multiple people. Okay. I know some of you don't want to hear that, but that is just the honest truth. Especially in these crazy times right now, we need to be extra cautious. So make sure you're only using that when you're changing color with the same brush with the same client. Okay. Another thing, we do not make a brush shampoo right now. I know we've talked about it. Maybe sometime in the future we will have something. Again, I really recommend that you invest in a shampoo, a brush shampoo that has a conditioning agent in it. I know some of you use hair shampoo, baby shampoo, things like that. I personally get a brush shampoo specific for makeup brushes because it has been formulated to properly care for the bristles of your brush. Okay. Brushes are expensive. I know that. They're an investment. Ours are spectacular quality for the price. But you're making that investment. You want to take care of them properly. So I do recommend a brush shampoo specific for makeup brushes. Another tidbit, once you have cleansed your brushes, I roll up a towel and then prop my brushes like this so that any moisture is not rolling or running back into the ferrule of the handle here. So I just prop it like this to keep the water out of that. And then once they are dry, you would come in and spritz it heavily with alcohol, let them dry again, and then they're good to go for your next application. All right, the next item, and the final item for this class that we're going to talk about is how to care for items that are on your makeup display and for your testers. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this, we don't know what the future of displays and testers holds. Like, we don't know exactly if there's going to be new regulations on that, how those are going to be handled. So I've written this with some recommendations for you, but definitely use your best judgment. It is up to each individual business on if they decide to keep their testers out, not keep them out, if they maybe want to keep them where staff only, staff is the only people that can access those testers. So I know some people are getting little sample cups, and if a customer is interested in trying something, a member of staff goes to the unit, puts the item into a sample cup, and then that sample cup is given to the client. So that's one way to control it as well. But the recommendations I'm going to talk to you about are written under the assumption that you can still have out testers on your display unit the way that you always have. So these are ways to keep those items safe and to operate in a safe manner. Okay. So all components of the display unit and all product packaging needs to be routinely wiped down or washed, ideally several times a day, especially if you have a unit in an area in which someone, a member of your staff, or you yourself are not constantly watching it. You need to routinely go with a disinfecting wipe, with a spray disinfectant, and wipe everything down. Okay. Simple fact is, you don't know sometimes who has touched what. You don't know if somebody has maybe sneezed on the unit or coughed or something like that. So if you are leaving your display unit and your testers out routinely throughout the day, you need to wipe everything down. Okay. I know that that is a hassle and it's a lot to manage, but I think we all need to operate under the assumption that something is contaminated and we need to be as safe as possible. One tip, make sure that you are not spraying your disinfectant into the product packaging itself. Okay. Especially if, somebody has left an eyeshadow palette open or something like that. You want to make sure that you are not, getting alcohol into that, display unit. I'm just looking through here because I feel like I skipped something in, Okay, I did. I'm missing a page. I am so sorry. Let me talk about displays and tester units, and then I'm going to go back and talk about a couple other product categories that for some reason did not print off when I printed my my manual today. So let's move on with this, and then I'll circle back around. Okay, so on your display or your tester unit, you want to make sure that you keep disposable applicators nearby. You want to keep them in sight for the customer so that they see them and they are prompted to use the disposables, right? So whether that's wood sticks, your mascara wands, your lip gloss wands, whatever that is, make sure that they are somewhere that the client can see it, and that if you see someone kind of struggling, you're able to go over and help them and let them know what they should be doing with those disposables. Another thing, I recommend keeping hand sanitizer next to the unit as well. If people are seeing that, they're going to get clued in that they probably should use the hand sanitizer prior to touching anything. So talking about powdered products, this is one of the things I skipped over. I'm so sorry, it did not print off for me. If you have powdered products like a palette, a compact, anything like that on your unit, again, you don't know who has been touching this. So what you want to do is take a tissue. You're going to come in and you're going to wipe down every single one of these. Okay, so you wipe one down, move to a new section of the tissue, wipe down another color. What that's doing is taking off that top layer of powder that someone might have touched. Okay, ideally, we do not want people touching these, but I know it's very, very hard to control that. You want people to be able to look at the products, and some consumers just aren't well versed in sanitation to know that they shouldn't take their finger right to the palette. So that's where you want to use a tissue and wipe down every single pan in the palette or in the compact to remove that top layer of powder. People do ask me about spraying alcohol directly on here or using a product like Beauty So Clean. That is personal preference. It is my belief that if you are watching the testers the way that you should, and if you are scraping them or wiping them off, you're going to be okay. Powders harbor less bacteria than creams, liquids, anything like that. If it's going to make you feel safe, go ahead and spray this. Just know that over time it will alter the formula of the powder. So you may find that you get a hard coating on it, and what you're going to need to do is come in with a mascara wand and scrape all that hard coating off so that the powder is nice and soft again. So again, my recommendation is really just to keep an eye and make sure people aren't touching this unnecessarily, and then routinely wipe down each pan in the palette or the compact with a tissue to remove that top layer of powder. Next thing, on your display unit or tester unit, like I mentioned before, anything that has an applicator included, lip gloss, mascara, eyeshadow primer, anything like that, consider removing the head of the applicator. If this is a tester, when someone goes to pull it out, they will see that is not on there, and they will automatically look for a disposable to use, okay? So I do recommend taking the heads of those applicators off just to ensure that you're safe. Okay, along those same lines, if you happen to see that somebody used the applicator here, put it back in the product packaging and set it back on the unit, this has to be thrown away now. Okay? There is no way to then disinfect all the product that's in here. So again, that is another reason why it's very, very important that you are keeping an eye on your display unit and on your testers, or that you let a member of your staff be the only one to handle those testers. Okay? So bullets or sticks that are on your unit, again, like I mentioned, those need to be scraped with a disposable stick or a spatula that can be disinfected, and then put either in a little cup or something like that for the client to try. You can also scrape them with a lipstick wand and then hand this wand to them, or they can do that and then use the wand. But if they need more product, this must be thrown away and they have to get a new one. Okay? So at the end of the day, or several times a day, you want to come in on your unit with any product in a stick or a bullet and scrape the top off. Again, sometimes you don't know if a client has gone over and used this on their mouth and then put the cap back on it. So you have to operate under the assumption that that has happened, and then you need to scrape it off. Okay? All right, and then all pencils or crayons, you need to either sharpen them in the manner that I mentioned before, if they are wood pencils and can be sharpened, or if they are retractable, you need to either break the tips off or scrape the tip off, turn it upside down, spray it with alcohol, let that dry, and then put the cap back on and store it. Okay? So that is the last item I had on the display unit and testers. I realized that I skipped talking about cream products or products that come in a pot, and then powdered products. Again, I totally apologize, guys. That did not print off for me. So I'm not sure what happened, but so cream products. With Mirabella's current lineup, we don't really have anything of that nature, but I know in the past they had something that was maybe in a little pot like this. If you were working from a little pot where it has a twist-off lid, you must scoop the product out of that packaging. Again, I use my wood sticks. You must scoop that product out, apply it to a palette, and then work from the palette. You cannot, should not, ever take a brush, dip it directly into this product, and then use it on the client and come back and do that, okay? You cannot do that. So if you're working with, even if it's a cream product that's in a compact, right? We used to have a cream to powder foundation. If you still have some of that in stock and you're using it on clients, scrape out what you need, put it onto a palette, and work from that, okay? You cannot work directly from the compact. Creams and liquids are two of the formulations that harbor the most bacteria and contaminants just by nature. So make sure to be extra diligent with that. So then the other item that I skipped over, and again, I totally apologize, is how to operate in a sanitary manner using powders that are in a palette or in a compact. So eyeshadows, blushes, bronzers, powder foundation, a pressed setting powder, anything like that. There are different ways that you can do it. So the two most popular ways are to scrape. I'm a huge fan of scraping. That just makes me feel better because I know for certain nothing has touched this. When you are scraping, especially with our eyeshadow palettes, because they have all these different compartments, I turn this upside down and then I take a mascara wand. I'm going to see if I can do this on camera. And I just scrape what I need and then it falls onto the palette. Okay. Turning it upside down ensures that you don't have shadow or colors falling into the other pans, right? So turning it upside down means that you're just getting the color that you need. So scraping is my preferred method, but this is totally personal preference on what you want to do. The other method is called the ghosting technique. So with the ghosting technique, it is called that because you're going to take a tissue and wrap it around your finger and make kind of this little ghost, right? So if you're using the ghosting technique, you're going to take your clean tissue, come right to the powder, scrape it over it, much like if you were scraping the top layer off to make sure it's not contaminated. And then you're going to work directly from the tissue. This is really great because it does mimic pressed powder a little bit easier than scraping. Obviously, when you scrape, the texture of the powder is then loose. And so if you're someone that you don't like working with loose powders a lot and you really prefer working from something that's pressed, this is going to mimic a pressed powder a lot better. So you will load color onto the tissue, then come in with your brush, pick up that color and go to the client. And then either with the ghosting technique or working from your palette, you can come back to the tissue or back to the palette to get more color. If you run out, then you need to scrape again, or if you need a different color, you're obviously going to use a new clean section of tissue or get a new tissue altogether and work from it that way, okay? So for anything pressed that is in powder form, either scrape it out or use the ghosting technique. You should never take a brush, get product, use it on a client, come back to the palette and get more. That is not a sanitary method. And again, if you were using either the scraping technique or the ghosting technique, make sure to close your palette once you've gotten what you need, and then set this aside, and you know that this is totally safe. So I don't feel that it's necessary to spray it with alcohol or spray it with Beauty So Clean or something like that, because it will destroy the formula over time. So just make sure you're scraping or ghosting, and you're going to be totally fine. Okay, so I'm sorry that I got a little bit out of order on the sheets here, guys. So I hope you were able to follow along. That is everything that I have for you. So again, I put this together really based off of what we know to be safe techniques for applying makeup and working with a kit. Obviously, if you are working from an actual makeup kit and not a display, you want to make sure to wipe down all of your products after you've used them before you store them in the kit. Again, make sure to wipe down the kit itself. So all of the rules that kind of go with a display unit and testers apply to a professional kit as well. So I think that's a piece that's missed a lot, is that people don't wipe down their actual kit. So their bag or their suitcase or, you know, their train case or whatever they're using, they don't actually sanitize that. And you do want to make sure to sanitize and disinfect your case and all of the product packaging as well. So that covered a ton. This guide, like I said, is posted in all of the groups and on this page, so you can find it that way and either save it or print it off. It is also available on the GoBella site. So if you are a registered member of the site, you can access the sanitation guide by going to the training tab across the top and then scrolling down to how-to guides, and it should be the first item on the page. So now that the verbal part of the class is finished, I do want to announce that we have put together a sanitation certification course. So what this means for you is that you can take the course on our www.go-bella.com site. And then once you pass, you can get a printable certificate showing that you have taken the Mirabella sanitation certification course. So with that, you absolutely must register for your own account on the site, okay? So if you're logging in under something generic or you're using somebody else's login, you won't be able to get a certificate with your name on it. So if you're a pro and you have not joined the site yet, again, this site is only for professional artists, those that are licensed in the field to work with makeup. So estheticians, cosmetologists, pro makeup artists, that kind of thing. Even salon and spa owners, you can do this as well. You want to register for an account on the site. And when you go to go-bella.com, in the center of the homepage, there's a red bar and it says Getting Started PDF. That PDF will give you the step-by-step instructions of how to register for an account, okay? Because this is a private site for licensed individuals, there are several steps that have to be completed so that we ensure the site remains private for licensed pros. So please, please, please read the beginning of that PDF to get the instructions for registering. Registration is not automatic, okay? That is the biggest thing. We do actually look at each registration and then approve people manually. So please be patient, because it might take 2 to 3 days for your registration to get approved, because we do check every single one and manually do it. Once you have your own login information, once your registration is approved, you're going to log into the site. You'll know that you are logged in because you will see your username up in the right-hand corner, okay? So if you look up there and you don't see your username, that means that you are not logged in. So make sure to log in. Once you are, go to the training tab. It's the first one listed on there. And then sanitation certification will be listed right under the training tab. It should be the first option. So click on that and then you will go through the course. It is the same PDF that I have given you guys for this presentation. You will read through that information, and at the end there is a quiz. It's 10 questions, and we do require that you pass with 9 out of 10 correct. So that's a 90%. See the flyer that we posted earlier in this on this page and in all the other groups for instructions on how to check your score and then how to retake the quiz if you need to. So you are able to retake it. You want to make sure to not click on the option where it will show you the right answers, because if you do that, guess what? You can't retake the quiz. So retake the quiz as many times as you need to pass with at least a 9 out of 10. Once that happens, you'll be able to access their certificate in your profile and print it off and frame it or hang it up or whatever you want to do. Okay? So again, make sure you're registered for an account on the site. See the Getting Started PDF for instructions on how to do that. Once you are logged in with your own info, then you can go through certification and get your certificate. So anyway, like I mentioned, if you have questions, go ahead and type them below. I'm going to pop on when I'm done here and answer those questions for you. I really hope that this helped. I know it's a lot of information, and I know some of it is not going to be easy to implement, but right now, especially the health and safety of ourselves and of our clients is our number one concern. So in the long run, it's really worth it to take those extra precautions. So I hope that you guys learned something. I hope if you have questions on the products, you go back and look at the other videos we've done prior. They're all posted here on this page. And I've been posting them in the private group. So you should be able to find that information if you need it. But anyway, I hope that you got something out of it. Let us know if you have questions. I hope you guys have a good one, and we'll see you later. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.